for the New Hampshire Business Show. Like I said, for a long time it's just been me, so now it's going to be me and Gail, and we will at the same time also have other guests coming in, not periodically, but every week, so it'll be different persons, so similar to what we've been doing, but a little longer, more about kind of what's going on with New Hampshire businesses, so a lot of more current event-y type things, and while integrating in our guests and kind of what they're doing. So it'll be fun. I think it'll be a good format, and I guess you all let me know if you like it or not.
Oh, please comment for sure. And let us know what you want to talk about. I mean, one of the things we thought about this morning was, so what is the state of business in New Hampshire?
Yeah. So, and like I said, there's a whole lot going on. It's a small state, like I like to say, small state, big business. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and
right.
I guess we'll kind of see how it goes from there. So we'll get through the introductions real quick. So we did a very slight thing here, but give us a little more in depth of who you are, Gail.
Oh, very quickly. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Gail Kraft. I'm an empowerment coach. I also have my own podcast, the Empowering Process Podcast, and I have a series of ebooks coming out, ETA in January. I'll tell you about it later. But mostly, I love working with women, mostly, who are ready to take it to the next level. Thank you for having me, Chris.
Absolutely. And you'll be here a lot more often as we get going. Don't mind me. I'm also checking the live streams to make sure everything's functioning properly, because this is the first one. So we got to make sure I didn't mess it up too bad. Mm-hmm. So as you all know, my name is Chris Pastrana. I am the host of the New Hampshire Business Show originally. We've done almost 400 episodes at this point, wow. And I figured it wasn't doing what I wanted it to. So it's time to reinvent the wheel a little bit, get back to basics, and do a different format for the show.
Make it more conversational.
Yeah, a little bit more. So it's not so much my guests talking entirely about what they want. It'll be a lot of them talking about what they are, which is why the guests are here. Right. And then a lot of me talking about myself and my experiences in New Hampshire business, and we meld that together into a more conversational podcast and less of a sales pitchy style one, if it kind of sounds like.
I think so. I mean, what I love about working with Chris is that his focus is really about New Hampshire business. So this is a perfect format. He really has this dream about being the center place for businesses to grow and expand and just flourish and succeed in the state of New Hampshire. It's his home, it's his heart, and that's where he's putting his soul and his work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I like that.
Yeah.
You only say nice things because you're sitting here.
I know. I tell the truth. It'll maybe come out.
Cool. So yeah, let's jump in a little bit. Let's talk about New Hampshire business. Yeah. It's been a little crazy. We're coming out of, depending on who you talk to, we're coming out of the pandemic. So there's a lot going on in New Hampshire, from new businesses opening, a lot of businesses closing down. So there's a good bit of play going on there.
It's very, very interesting. You and I have had the conversation about what is going on with businesses re-engaging. So we've got the BC before COVID. We have the DC during COVID, and then we have the AC after COVID, right? And, before COVID, I will tell you, I was doing maybe 5, 6, 7 networking events a week, yep. Meeting people, expanding my business, and going like wildfire. Of course, COVID hit and everyone put on the brakes, but I was already in a pretty good mode, and most of my business is online, so my online really didn't get, in fact, my business went up during COVID. Now, after COVID, there is no going back to the way it was. And I think that is what's happening right now. People are trying to go back to the way it was and seeing that it's not working. And what I mean by that is I've been to a bunch of networking events, and there's been the same 4 or 5 people showing up at the networking events. That's not a networking event, guys. That's a coffee shop, right? A networking event is where you meet with some of the same people, but you meet new people and you expand and you support each other. So we really need to look at different ways to do that. We're doing one here at the co-working place here in Londonderry once a month. We're doing, a games night. And in the games night, it is a networking event. No doubt a networking event, but it's all about playing games and getting to know people at a much different level. And what happens is you're in the middle of a game and it's like, hey, you do marketing? I'm looking for someone who can help me out with such and such. let's meet afterwards. It is conversational. It is no pressure. It is no, asking for anything. It's really just finding out who people are and getting to see them, know them, like them, then do business with them in one night. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, because usually networking events they're 45 minutes, hour sometimes, but our game nights, they're a lot of fun. We'll sit here for 2-3 hours, and that's only the game night. A lot of times they spill over into this like after party. It's not really a party, but we'll sit around and just not even play games. We'll just talk. And that could be another couple hours. 4 or 5 hours of just sitting around playing games, having fun, and that turns into business. You get to know each other on a level that's not just, here's my business card, buy my stuff.
Right.
And it's better.
Right.
I think so.
Right. Right. And it really started, I had taken a road trip for a couple of months and came back, and I missed people. I missed seeing people. And I thought the best way to get people back together is, let's play some games. And so I talked to Chris, and he's like, yeah, we could probably do this monthly. We can make it a thing here. And it was just so much fun. And it's been so come on down. Really, come on down. First Thursday of every month.
Yep. So first Thursday of the month, it's free again, no charge, none of that stuff. So the first Thursday is, I think it's 2 weeks from now, isn't it? Yeah, so it's the 4th. So 2 weeks, November 4th.
I know.
I was like, we're already at the last part of the year.
I know.
So November 4th, come on down. Again, it'll be game night. We have a bunch of things going on here at the co-work. So again, that's another thing to jump into. I have a bunch of businesses. I kind of run a whole bunch of stuff, and a lot of it spurred up from trying to just survive the pandemic.
Right.
So my apparel business, the tinting business, those spurred up just to make money. And they're doing pretty good. I just put out my first set of ads for the residential tinting line that we're doing.
Excellent.
So that'll be cool. We'll see if that turns into anything, hopefully. I would rather do a couple of those jobs a month than 100 cars, The coworker lender itself, which is my other business, that was before the pandemic. And actually, as a lot of you know, this started as kind of a adjunct to the New Hampshire Business Show, which is funny because when we were looking for a studio, we kind of just got this place and we're like, let's rent out some of the rooms at the same time.
Right.
And then everything just went super out of control from then on. But that's how it started. And then it kind of became the co-work, and it was kind of history from there. So a lot of businesses, a lot of things going on here from myself and all my businesses, the apparel line, like I was saying, Strike Fear clothing. So we do a lot of, this is actually one of my shirts. I didn't even know I had it on. So it just says, you can't see it, but Strike Fear. And then it says "Death to the Wicked" on my arm.
I love, and it's amazing clothing line. It really is adorable.
Yeah.
And we did not color coordinate.
Yeah, it kind of just happened. So, what's that old saying? Great minds think alike, fools rarely differ.
Yeah.
So so Strike Fear clothing. We have quite a few lines out right now. I'm always just playing around with different designs and stuff, and it's more of not a full-time gig. I sell a couple shirts here and there. I put them out. I put them in stores, and whatever sells. It makes me a few $100s a month, and if it grows, cool, I'll gladly take the money. And if it becomes something bigger and better, which I want it to, then that's something very easily for me to hand to my children. Where something like the co-work, they're not ready to run that, but they could run an apparel company.
Right.
So that's kind of my whole goal behind a lot of my businesses is it's not so much for me, it's me creating something for my kids,
right,
who can then take up that mantle, run with it, and have something better, if that makes sense.
Right. And so one of the benefits of coming to the co-working place now is that with your apparel business, you're offering a few free t-shirts. So like I could come and get a t-shirt with my company logo on it.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff is super easy to do, super straightforward. And then the way the apparel company runs, it's very affordable for new businesses.
Right.
So that's kind of why we did it that way, is so that, you don't go into, so most print shops, when you walk into them, there's minimums, you have to have your entire, how do I word this? You have to dedicate the shirt to the print.
Right.
So you have like 25 shirts, 25 shirts, 25 shirts, 25 shirts, and they're all printed, and you hope they sell or go out or whatever like that. What we do is a little different. So we've got all of the shirts, but we can just print the designs separately and then apply the design to the shirt later. So we could do a couple hundred designs for a few $100s, and then went down the road when you're ready, like, hey, I need 10 of them. All right, cool. We press them, and send them over to you, and that's it.
That's it,
So it saves up on a lot of space, a lot of upfront costs. So it's a good service. And that's how I keep my own designs. Is they're all sitting on a shelf at my house, and when I get an order, I'm like, okay, large, press it, and then off it goes.
Right,
So,
and honestly, with the problems that we're having with things coming overseas,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You really want to have your shirt ready.
absolutely, and because that's getting crazy across the board. You want
Yes.
to talk about what's going on currently
Right.
as far as business. Even for shirts, like for my last couple of orders of shirts are way more expensive than the last couple of orders. Now you're talking $1 a piece, but that adds up.
That's a lot.
Per shirt, right? Because I used to get my black shirts, I forget what they were like $2.50, $3, something like that, and now they've gone up. Like everything has gone up, and then wait times have gone up, everything. So it's difficult for businesses in that position who, again, you're dealing with long wait times, more expense. So it makes things far more difficult to deal.
Well, back in the day, I can remember just-in-time processing. I worked for GE, so I understand what it is to work closely with your distributor, with your provider of services, so that you don't have to stockpile, right?
Yeah.
It's just in time, and so you have things timed so that orders go in and you receive the product just when you need the product for
Yeah.
the process. That's impossible to do now because of the wait time. It's had a huge impact. I ordered some shirts. I think I was telling you, 3 shirts, and they're made in the USA, and they happen to be shirts that aren't stockpiled. They're made after you place the order. And it took weeks for me to get that stuff because they had to order the material,
Yeah.
right? And then shipping it, they told me when they sent it out, and I'm telling you, the mail service it's Pony Express now. It truly is very, very slow.
Yeah.
And companies are not committing to a reasonable delivery time because they can't.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, just across the board, it makes things very difficult. So I know are you green belt or black belt certified?
Green belt.
Green belt. So I had done. It's not an official thing, but I think they call it like yellow belt. It's like pre-green belt,
Right.
And it's just an intro to it. So we did it was like 2-3 days of the
Six Sigma.
process, and it was a lot of fun. And again, this is part of that process you were talking about. Is this difference between making a whole bunch of something and putting it in a warehouse, which takes time, money, all that stuff, compared to what you were saying, where things are ordered as you need them.
Right.
So they're not held on hand very long. You don't have a lot of waste. You don't have a lot of extra, and they kind of they meet, go, and they're out.
Right.
And again, when you don't have a supply chain that's shored up because of, I don't want to get too much into politics right now, but
Not yet.
from
We will.
from the pandemic to now, everything that's gone on has really shaken the supply chain up quite a bit, and you're not getting the same response that we used to have, which was fairly good in comparison.
Right. And gas prices are crazy. I can't imagine what they are on the West Coast, guys. I used to live in California, so I understand your prices and your tax bases. It's just insane to do anything and to get anywhere. So that has an impact on the small business. It's trickle down, right? And then you've got wages are going to be going up, right? You cannot hire someone for minimum wage anymore. So these small companies, and we're mostly small companies here in New Hampshire. They're small businesses. Hiring someone new and training them, it's almost impossible. You're not capable of hiring someone at $9, $10 an hour. You've got to be going $18, $20, $25 an hour for someone who you're training and doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's all inflationary, guys. We're on that inflationary curve. It's very scary where we're heading.
Yeah. And again, back to what you were saying. So I'm so glad so you guys will learn. I like to start businesses. Sometimes I have a habit of jumping far before I'm actually ready to do anything, which is funny.
That's fun.
Yeah. And so one of the things I wanted to do beginning of this year, last year, was I wanted to open a rage room. Still want to. It's on my list. It's very high on my list. But now we're getting to labor issues. And I'm like, I would have walked right into those problems had we been able to actually get the door open,
Right.
Sooner. And it's like hiring again is just a pain.
Right.
It's like you got to hire people, you got to be able to again train them, all this stuff, and then at some point hope they stay.
Right. Right. And that I don't know. It's tough. I'm thankful that the type of work that I do, I am able to get virtual assistants, right? And so that can be really fluid. I can get someone to do some work for me for 6 months, for a year, 2 months, depending on what it is that I want. But to have someone stay on, people that I used to work with, first of all, are making way too much money, right, for what I want. So I'm looking for someone new or someone different. Or they've gone on because I hire really good people. I vet my folks. And they've grown, and I'm very thankful that they grew, but kind of sad. I can't work with them anymore.
I remember we did an interview, I want to say about 2 years ago. It was one of my first ones when I was here. I was still in my first room, not the podcast room. And it was interesting because she's not a virtual assistant. She's more of a personal assistant type thing. So she does a lot of virtual assistant work, but a lot of it's also in person.
Right.
So I'm speaking to this person, and we had a conversation about the employee versus 1099 world, and how I personally think and you're starting to see it, we're going to weed out of the W-2 world.
Oh, sure.
So your relationships with businesses are going to be far more 1099 based.
Right.
So again, small businesses, they're very common for them to work with 1099 basis with other people, and not even 1099 specifically, but business to business. So you hire virtual assistants to do work for you, and then whenever your contract's done, it's done.
Right.
So you're not hiring them as 1099, but it's still that you're still contracting them to work for you. If you get what I mean.
And it depends. So I did a lot of contract work, and I still will. For businesses, and I have done contract work as a project manager / coach, because I'm also certified in change acceleration process, and I have done both W-2 and 1099. Now, on a short-term contract, 3 or 6 months, to go on W-2, yay, you pay my taxes, and I end up getting money back at the end of the year. I don't have to pay my taxes, but 1099, it looks like you're paying me more because I charge you for me having to pay my taxes.
Yeah.
Right? So you're not taking that half on, so I'm going to add that on to what I'm billing you. And so it's like, well, we can't afford you, full time. It's like, well, if you put me on W-2, then I don't have to worry about the taxes. So there's, two different sides to it. So you can do contract work and be a W-2. Depends on how the business wants to handle it, right? If they want to be responsible for potentially putting you on their retirement plan, right? That's the risk that they take if you stay longer than a certain period.
Yeah.
Now, when I was at GE, I had contractors all the time. We brought contractors in to do whatever it was that we were developing. And I was very, very aware as the manager to be sure that their contract, the day it was done, whether they were finished with the project or not, they were gone.
Yeah.
And my technical staff had to get up to speed to pick up the load if the contractor wasn't done, because if you kept the contractor, the risk being, for a company this big, they do not want to take the risk of the government looking at you and saying, oh, you brought someone in as a contractor and they're really a full-time employee, you have avoided paying taxes, you have avoided paying benefits, you have avoided paying, time off. And so we're going to slap you with a fine.
Yeah.
So we were very, very aware of how long someone was on and made sure that they were off. So that's another thing, folks. If you are doing contract work, be very, very sure that you don't fall into that kind of a conundrum.
So I know this isn't New Hampshire, but this kind of talks about what we're talking about. In California, very recently, within the last year or so, they passed a law that heavily restricted owner-operators, which is kind of what we're talking about. So especially in the driving industry. So truck drivers, it also impacted journalists a lot, which was kind of funny. Anyway, so what it did was it said after a certain amount of hours, I forget how it specifically was laid out, but after a certain amount of time, you could not 1099 someone anymore. They had to be W-2,
Right.
or you couldn't hire them in California.
Right. That was to hit Uber.
Yes, so it hurt Uber because they were trying to, again, governments are, now I'm going to get directly political because I hate this. Governments are constantly getting involved where they don't need to. So, the taxi drivers are like, oh, we're losing business because our model's old, it doesn't work, and whatever. So they're
then go work for Uber.
Correct. And correct. But a lot of these people, again, they buy in, they spend a lot of money to get their tags legal
To get the
and all
tag
that stuff.
is expensive.
Yeah. So the government steps in and they're like, well, you can't do this. Well, that hurt a lot of people and a lot of businesses. And kind of a roundabout way to talk about what's going on right now, this is also a big issue for why there's not a lot of truck drivers in California, because it impacts owner-operators so much. The shipping lanes are all backed up because there's not enough trucks to take them off. There's a whole bunch of problems, and it also stems from this issue. So when the government gets involved, oftentimes it has a direct impact on businesses, but governments are slow and they're inefficient, so they don't operate well, especially to the quick changing nature of business. So when they get involved, they often create unforeseen problems down the road that they had no idea were going to come around. So,
And we want national health care, folks. Think about it. we weren't going to get political this time, right?
well, no. So yeah, there's a little bit of politics involved. We generally stay out of it too much. So I will say, for the sake of the podcast, we are going to talk politics. It's going to come up because business likes to go about business, but politics likes to get involved in business.
Right.
Now, when you get to big business, those guys like to play politics quite a bit, and I have a rant on that later on. But you guys will get to know me really well over this new format. What is it? So anyway, we'll get into politics. We'll talk that, especially where it involves business, especially New Hampshire businesses. So, and then my big thing is, we were talking about earlier, we were talking about being really involved in the community, and that was the point of this podcast as well. It's not only just about businesses, it's a voice for businesses to reach higher, right?
Right.
So it helps small businesses come in, talk about what they are, what they like. I always say a small business doesn't have the same advertising Coke and Pepsi do, right? So if they want to reach a lot of people, they have to get on a bigger platform. They play that whole game, and that was always the point of the New Hampshire Business Show, was to grow so that we could take other businesses and, one, give them a voice so they can advertise a little better.
Right.
They can get out to a couple thousand people, get seen, be heard, but also so that we can play politics a little bit. So moving forward, what we're talking about, especially in this format, is we are going to be, every once in a while, we'll bring on politicians, we'll be talking business, and as we grow, we'll be able to do more and more of those things. For those of you that have been around for a while, I think last year, 2020, we did an interview with John Delaney. John Delaney was running for the Democratic ticket, and he dropped out pretty early on because he couldn't stand up to Biden and all those other guys and stuff, like Buttigieg and all those. But he's a business guy himself, but the point is, we'll talk politics for business, and if everyone gets together and talks to us, so that we can then bring these politicians on and talk to them, we can help transfer voices.
Absolutely. And honestly, like I said, I have a podcast too. And if you listen to my podcast, the Empowering Process Podcast with Gail Kraft, you will see that I don't hold the soft shoe conversations, right? I want to get to the hard conversations, and I hope that that's where we get to as well, Chris. I want us to not shy away from the controversy and not back away from, people don't want to hear about that. And it doesn't matter. Opinion is opinion. There is no right and there is no wrong. It's just perspective. And I want to be able to show perspective so that there's flavor and granulation and texture in our conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to take a quick second and shout out Brandon, who's been going crazy in the comments.
Hey, Brandon!
Thank you, Brandon. And hello, Michelle. Absolutely. So governments should definitely let the free market work. I don't say this lightly, There are some issues with the free market, but I would rather have more of a free market than more of a government-controlled one. So,
Well, and all right, so I'll get on a little soapbox. All right, maybe just a step ladder, not the soapbox, but the step ladder, and talk about this thing called monopoly. Right? It is illegal to have a monopoly. And guys, we have allowed monopolies to form, and we have encouraged them to form. And I just want to say, take a look at Amazon.
yeah, that's right.
Right? What's the first thing you do when you go online and you want to purchase something? That's the first place you go to look. And it doesn't matter what you're purchasing, whether it's food, whether it's clothing, whether it's electronic. They also have services. Whether, services, they're now selling services. There is a problem when there's one-stop shopping for everything. It is not a department store.
Yep.
It is a monopoly.
Correct. And I will say there are there are options instead of going to them.
People don't think of them.
Yes. Yes. So does that make it a monopoly? I mean, it's close enough. Yes. So I'm no friend of Amazon, especially after some of the stuff they pulled last year. I'm absolutely fed up with them. I don't like them. I canceled my Prime, everything. I don't use them. So the problem is there's also things you can't get anywhere anymore. So because of the atrophy of the system, there's things you can't get anywhere else.
Right.
So with a lot of things I used to do with decal work and all that stuff, I can't get vinyl outside of Amazon. I can go to Walmart, and that's like twice the price. But then you're like, oh, which monster do you want to go with, Amazon or Walmart, right?
Right.
So it's not like I can go to a local shop, because if there was a local place that I could get vinyl and stuff from, I would go there.
Right.
Absolutely. So but in that market, there's not a whole lot of options.
Right.
And then there are other places that there's very few things you can do, and I think that's a problem.
Right.
So looking forward, can I solve those problems myself? No, I don't think I'll ever be able to compete with Amazon. But I have plans for a local distribution network. I want to offer some of those in New Hampshire.
Right.
So at least that way we can solve some of these issues without being outside of the state. If that makes
Right.
sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and I'll tell you, I worked with someone on getting their business, on Amazon, getting their products sold on Amazon. And, Amazon does vet their vendors.
Yeah.
So, they really do a very detailed, thorough job to make sure that any vendor on their site is, if they say their product is quality, their product is quality. You have to prove it to them. So, so it is reputable as far as that is concerned. Mm-hmm. It's just the only place to go, and that bothers me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me jump in the comments here real quick.
Yes.
So Michelle,
Hey,
I would love to make my own vinyl shop. That is, maybe we get to that someday. That's an undertaking. But maybe 20 years down the road, I'll be able to be at a point where we can do that stuff. I mean, we're already working on the graphene stuff, so maybe it's a better option than I think it is. Mm-hmm. We'll see. It'll take time, but so yeah, Michelle and Brandon are with us.
Yay!
Which is kind of funny. So we gotta. Oh, guys. So Michelle also says she has no problem with Amazon being what they are, because there are opportunities for others to compete if they want to. I just don't agree with them getting involved in politics for their own financial gain. So again,
back to politics. That's the whole
kind of back what I said. After last year, Amazon did some things that I was thoroughly disapproved of. I have no problem with companies growing and becoming bigger, and Bezos's life story is actually pretty inspirational for an entrepreneur, right? I love that. On the back end, they do some pretty corrupt things as far as politics go. So I disapprove of that pretty highly, and I won't use them for that anymore.
Right.
So,
well, politics and business are, they're in bed together.
At a level.
It's a fact.
Yeah.
It has been a fact for a long time. And is there a solution? We're not going to solve it in this podcast.
But we do the best we can.
But we will, we're going to talk the controversy. And then get people to think.
Yeah, get people to talk about it. So, yeah. So, minimum, we'll talk about opinions. Gail is not shy to express her opinions on things. So there will be times we'll have to calm that down for the Facebook overlords so they don't ban us.
That's true. I love you, Facebook.
Yeah, we love you. Yeah. Love you so much. But yeah, so as we move forward, we'll play with that and just try to keep ourselves from getting banned and all that stuff. But we're more of a business podcast, so
Right. And it's the impact that the bigger business have on small business, and I'm not definitely one to even suggest that small business or any business has its season, that it's created, it flourishes, and it's time to disappear.
yeah,
Right? So I have no problem with a business overtaking another business because it's time for it to disappear.
Yes.
It's another thing to really crush it or make it impossible for that small business to flourish in its own community.
correct. So I like that point. It's a point of Blockbuster and Netflix, right? One put one out of business. Not specifically because Netflix went to the government and said Blockbuster can't be in business anymore, which is different compared to, let me think of a good example, hemp. I think hemp was shut down because of government interference. Marijuana or cannabis, because some people think marijuana is racist. Shut up. So we got the cannabis industry was heavily shut down because of politics, stuff like that.
It took a long time for that to break loose. Yep.
Yeah, and then just even things I've heard about in the last year, automation, so vehicle automation. They're like, this could put truck drivers out of business. Yes, eventually. But so are a lot of California's laws, right? So
as we see, right?
Things change, and there comes a time when these things will overtake. So people always talk about save the coal industry. Totally get it. People want their jobs. You can't just teach someone to code, which is one of the controversial things that come up during elections.
Mm-hmm.
But in realism, industries go under. The people that made 8-tracks were probably pretty upset with tape cassettes, and cassettes were mad at CD players, and CDs are mad at MP3 players, and you name it, right? So there's always a change because technology changes. You think if we figure out this whole thing with graphene, you think that's not going to upset a few industries? Like that's going to put stuff out of business.
And that is going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a dream. So graphene, guys, we'll talk about that some other time.
Oh yeah. If I can get Brandon down here one of these days, we will absolutely sit and talk about graphene.
Right.
And because my boy Brandon is a waste fiend, and not in a bad way. So he doesn't make a lot of waste. He's very into reducing waste, which is
recycle it, reuse it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Which reminds me, on the Thursday. So on Thursday, the 21st, we will be having an e-waste drive here at the co-work. If you have old computers, electronics, laptops,
batteries,
tablets, all that type of stuff, bring it down. We're doing a recycling drive. So you bring it down to us. There's no cost, and we will take all of that stuff and we will recycle it. So come on down to the co-work. Again, it's free, and it's a good way to deal with e-waste, which I'm sure Brandon will post it here in the comments in a minute about how a lot of waste on the planet comes from electronics and business and stuff. So,
but we're also looking at plastic.
Yes.
Right. So it's not just e-waste. If you want to save up those plastic bottles and bring them down, let's stop sending them to China. Let's make them into something usable. Right.
Yeah. So again, this is a little further down the road. We're working on turning plastics into things that can be resold via 3D printing.
Right.
So we have the process pretty shored up at this point. Now it's just a capital investment issue,
right?
Which actually we'll talk about some other time off air, but I have a solution for that.
Okay, good.
Kind of funny.
We'll have that conversation.
Yeah.
During our coaching session.
And so that'll be good. So 3D printing from plastics, and then again, I have found out there's a thing called graphene, and graphene itself can be harvested from recycled plastic in theory. So, I mean, some people have done it. Just as theory for me because I'm dumb. And
right.
Like,
you're going to learn.
Yeah. And we'll get there.
Yeah.
So we're going to figure out how to do it and then revolutionize the world.
Right here from Southern New Hampshire.
Absolutely.
Right?
I would love Southern New Hampshire to be the graphene capital of the world.
Oh, my goodness.
Like, boom. There it is.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, there's not a whole lot going on there. I mean, that was pretty much it. So for other things going on in New Hampshire, let's talk a little bit about pandemic. So we opened this whole thing talking about marketing and not marketing, networking. Networking and all that type of stuff. So networking events coming up. We do a networking event here on Thursdays. It's my Gold Star group. So if you want to get into old-fashioned networking, come on down. We do it every Thursday at noon. And then if you want to do some new networking, come down to our game nights. Again, that's first Thursday of the month, which will be the 4th. So that's like 2 weeks from now. And yeah, that's a lot of what we had going on. Anything good going on in New Hampshire?
There is so much going on. This week, actually, our local Chamber of Commerce is holding a Health and Wellness Week. It's online. That's the Greater Londonderry Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. It's greater because it's more than just us two. It's, I have actually a video that's being shown during that, and a few other folks have some educational training videos, and this is going to culminate on Friday afternoon, guys. Friday afternoon, starting around 3 o'clock at Renovate Fitness here in Londonderry. She's holding a second open house, if you will, a ribbon cutting.
Yep.
I'm going to be speaking. There's going to be card readers there. There's going to be massage therapy there. There's going to be training there. There's going to be food there. There's going to be games there. So that's going to end this week-long health and wellness event, and there'll be lots of information there too. So if nothing else, come down on Friday, 3 o'clock.
Cool. And yeah, so definitely Liz is amazing. I love Liz. I'm actually a member of her gym.
You are, me too.
I haven't been over there in a long time to work out.
You gotta get over.
It looks like you work out that much. Yeah, so definitely jump over. If you're available, go over there, check out Liz's place. It's really nice here in Londonderry. It's pretty much right across the street from the co-work. So if you're at this intersection, it's like right across the street. So
you could walk there if you had to.
Oh, absolutely. You should walk there from the co-work because I need to lose weight, and more fitness is better.
Do we need to do 75 hard again?
I thought about it.
Let's do it before the winter. I mean, here we are. Again, we started last year just before Thanksgiving, of all times, to start 75 hard.
Yeah.
In the snow, in the rain, in the cold, during Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. Be on a food plan and no alcohol.
Yeah.
But we did it.
Yeah. I haven't drank since we started 75 hard, which is good because I needed to stop drinking.
Awesome. There you go. See?
Yeah. So, yeah, we should do that again. I like that.
Okay, let's talk about it.
I lost a lot of weight when we were doing that. So
Yep.
if anyone's unfamiliar with 75 hard, especially as a business owner or whatever, it's a fun, well, I shouldn't call it fun. It's definitely a fun activity to work on yourself, work on your mindset predominantly. Because, yes, while it is physical, it's more mental. It's very much, again, working on your mindset, because I think you have to work out twice a day. Each one of them has to be at least 45 minutes. One of them has to be outside. So that becomes tricky in the winter, but I actually like it when it gets colder out because I'm a big guy. I like it colder. Mm-hmm. So outside, working out twice.
A gallon of water a day, be on a meal plan, read 10 pages of a motivational book every day. What was the other thing? Take a selfie.
Yep, the selfie.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
So we can do it modified because there's no really point to selfies and stuff like that. But
no.
I know how you feel about the water. So we'll.
I really had a hard time with the
yeah.
water.
So we can do it modified because we're not part of a group. But I would love to do that again. That was a phenomenal.
So if anybody wants to join us, let us know. We'd be happy to start it up. We could still use Chris's group. Right, we can just put in that we've done this, and this, because that helped. That absolutely helped. Is to have a group that we reported to, that we're responsible to. We were partners. There were 3 of us actually that. We were accountability partners more so than motivational partners. It was like, hey, Chris, did you walk today? No. Well, I'm coming down. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So someone's outside. You hang out, talk for a minute, and I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
So I'm going to have to hold the show, hang out and talk. So I'm going to talk a little bit. Is this on me? I don't even know. Hi, everybody. It's Gail, and I'm here at the co-working place. So we were talking a little bit about 75 hard, and let me tell you about my experience when I did that. Like I said, it was during the holiday season and during the winter here in New Hampshire. So it was a little bit of a challenge to keep up with it. However, that's the whole point of 75 Hard, is the mental challenge, the challenge of every morning getting up and going, oh my goodness, I need to get that gallon of water set. I need to get my indoor workout set. I need to schedule my outdoor workouts. I need to sit down and read my 10 pages. I need to be sure that I'm on a meal plan, be sure I don't have any alcohol, right? 6 or 7 things that you need to check off to be sure that you do every day. And the reason it's a mindset, the first week, you know, like anything that you start new, anything, you're gung-ho, you're ready to go, balls of fire, right? Your energy is up there, like, we're going to do this thing. The second week is like, am I still doing this thing? The third week is, when will this thing be over? And the fourth week is, oh my God, I'm still doing this thing, right? But you continue and you continue, and as you push past a certain point, oh, here's the deal. If you miss something, you need to go back to day 1. So first week, if you miss something and you have to start all over again, not a big deal. Second week, after 14 days, if you miss something and have to start all over again, a little painful, but you can do it. Third week, you really don't want to. Come the fourth week, at least for me, come hell or high water, I was not starting all over again. I had gone that far. I was going to continue through it. Now think about this from a business perspective, right? If you're able to do 75 Hard, if you're able to dig in and say, you know, it's 11 o'clock at night, I haven't finished my gallon of water, to sit down and finish what you need to finish, no matter what, because there's a timeline, then you can do that with your business. You can do that with your relationships. You can do that for yourself. So if you're able to do 75 Hard, so yes, I mean, it was the best confirmation for me that I have what it takes to really push through my barriers and really stick through it. So, so Chris, he's not here yet. Oh, there he is. Chris and I are, you know, we'll seriously talk about 75 Hard, starting it up again. I will let the other Chris, who was running it in the first place, know that we're doing this, and get permission to use his site. Even though we're going to modify it. So I'll give a little conversation with him, because it's really great to be on a Facebook page and just sharing experiences with each other. I was very honest about this day sucks, right? Thanksgiving. Was it Thanksgiving? I think it was Thanksgiving. No, because I was doing it for a while, so it had to have been around Christmas time. I was out doing my walk, and I did it was 3 times around for about 45 minutes where my condo is, and I went around once, and I did not want to do any more, and I was ready to head in the house, and then I stopped and I went, wait a minute, this is a piece of cake. You have been doing this for like 30 days, so there's no reason for you not to finish today. Put your big girl panties on, Gail, and finish the route. And I did. So it really was confirmation that when push comes to shove, I can stick with it.
That's good. Yeah. He's like 75 Hard. Is that what you're talking about with 75 Hard?
All right, we don't need to talk anymore.
All right, perfect. Yeah. Only difficulty with having it in a place like this is people come in and talk to me. Yeah. So that gentleman was here to sign up for a year virtual membership. So
Yay!
Love it. Money.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, perfect.
Yes.
So I'll take care of him later. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, let's get to the end of this. We're rolling on about 45 minutes now, and we'll kind of push forward and go from there.
Right, and those of you who are writing in the comments, even if you're watching the replay, if there's something that you want us to talk about, or if you want to join us, let us know. We'd be happy to have you.
Yeah,
happy
absolutely.
to have that conversation.
Yep. So the email address for people to send in, you can either reach out to me directly. I'm pretty active on Facebook. Feel free to send anything over to nhbusinessshow@gmail.com. That's the generic one. I have my own private NH Business Show email address, but I use the other one for stuff like this.
Right.
So if you want anything, if you come across articles that you think would come out pretty good for the episode, shoot them up. We're going to be doing this again once a week. Trying for Mondays. We'll see what days work best. This seems to be a pretty good day.
Yeah.
And we'll be rolling from there. I say that a lot, rolling from there. That's
Yeah,
weird.
we're rolling. We're
Yeah,
rolling. Maybe that'll be our theme song.
We're rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll pull a Limp Biscuit like an old
Rolling
90s.
down the river.
Even further back. Yeah, so anything you want us to talk about, reach out. We're always here. We're here for you. And again, New Hampshire's a great place. A lot of business going on. It's just very old-fashioned.
Right. It's time to change. If COVID taught us nothing, it's time to change.
Yeah.
Right.
There's amazing things going on in other parts of the country, and again, sometimes I've met more people in New Hampshire that tell me they want to be amazing, but only in like word of mouth referrals. That's where they feel comfortable. And I'm like, you're not going to get anywhere if no one knows about you. If no one knows about you, no one's going to talk about you.
Right.
You need to advertise. You need to do things. You need to do something for your business. But everyone's so old school that it hurts a lot of people.
Well, it's a comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I'm all about comfort zone. In fact, the ebook that I'm working on right now is about breaking out of your comfort zone. Right? It's balancing fear and the opportunity for growth. So fear and the opportunity for growth, that I think that is where many businesses are right now in New Hampshire. They're in the I'm comfortable to go out of this comfort zone is frightening. And you need to get out of the comfort zone, guys, and we're here to help you. Right?
Yep. There's nothing. It looks easy because we're so amazing at what we do, but sitting on camera or just ignoring that the cameras are even here
Right.
is very difficult, because I don't know how many businesses I've sat in front of like this that they're like blah blah blah. I'm like, we're rolling, and they're like, I'm like, so tell me about yourself. I'm Gail. Great, thanks for the help. See, I'm going to be doing all the talking.
and now he's got me as a co-host, and he's going to be like, Gail, can I have 2 minutes, please?
Yeah. So, as I said, we have amazing things coming. And again, as we grow and move forward, we're going to be hopefully at some point moving out of the co-work. So we will, again, this will come with time. I would love to get my own studio up and running again. Just a really nice one set up somewhere, so we're not sitting in the hall of the co-work, but I have the space, so why not use it, right?
Yeah, and you know what? I would love to talk about New Hampshire, New Hampshire business. You have a challenge. What's your biggest challenge? Let us know what that biggest challenge is, and we can talk about it.
I like that. So for next week, biggest challenge you have with New Hampshire, limitations you see,
Right.
things and if you have any solutions, pull them forward too. We'll talk about all
Something
that
that you
stuff.
would like to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Because I would love to. I talked about this the other day. I would love to see some type of roadway between here and Keene. That'd be great. I know Brandon would love that. So
Right. That isn't what is it, 96 that goes like
yeah, it's like it goes like this through
Yeah.
all the states. Or if you're Brandon, you want to avoid paying that dollar tax, you go down
to Massachusetts.
add
Yeah.
another 30 minutes on your ride.
Right. We do have people who live east to west.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I know. You were saying this. They're really good at going north-south. So
Right.
93 does a pretty good job. 89's okay
Yeah.
about going that way. But going out to like Rochester, out to like the seacoast, that's a pain.
Right.
Because once you get over to Portsmouth, there is kind of a road that goes up, but it's kind of a pain.
Yeah. We need to figure that out, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might take another 20 years, like the extension to 93, but
I know,
whatever.
but that looks nice though.
Yeah, now it's done.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really nice.
Yeah.
That has helped the traffic out so much. Talk about something the government did right. It might have taken them way too long and over budget and all this stuff, but at least for now, the traffic's not bad on 93 at all
Right.
anymore.
It's beautiful.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you give us a short introduction into yourself, and
Sure.
we'll go from there.
Great. So we've met in the past. So I'm, I guess you could say, an entrepreneur, maybe a serial entrepreneur, investor. So I work in real estate. I do closings for real estate. I broker commercial real estate. Own property. I own a couple e-commerce businesses, and then I consult and do contracting work for real estate investment and financial coaching. So a lot of different angles, but I'm just genuinely interested in New Hampshire and local businesses in the area and helping people live a better life in general.
Cool. So, kind of answer the questions that are going to come up. I know they're going to. I know we got off around, it was about 11:30 or so, whenever we got off the podcast. And now we're back. So what happened is I gave Steve the wrong time, accidentally. And so when he showed up at noon, expecting to do the podcast, we had already finished. And he was like, do you guys have any to do more? And I can always talk. So Gail was lovely enough to come back because she was still in the room talking to me. And now we're going to do another little bit. We're going to talk some more about local business, and then we will go from there. So these two are most likely the faces you're going to see as we move forward. And then we'll have other guests, and you can't really see it, but that table sitting right over there is I'm probably going to set it up for the podcast next time, so we're not sitting on this cramped little desk. But we'll be coming together to talk to local businesses. We'll have guests, and we'll have everything set up in here so we can really do a better, more intricate podcast. So, yeah. So let's get back into a little bit and kind of go from there. Now, I know we were talking about something a minute ago, so I want to jump back into what you guys.
We were talking about wrestling a minute ago.
Oh yeah.
Right? We were talking about self-defense a minute ago.
Good. That's actually, might as well, we can start there, because
Yeah.
I know Steve used to wrestle back in the day. As we were just telling Gail, we met, I want to say, I forget, 2003 something, 2002, when I started wrestling at Goffstown High School. Steve was a senior. And were you senior for the year?
I think it's 2 years. So we wrestled together 2 years. You're
Okay.
freshman, my junior year.
So you're a junior. I was a freshman. Fresh into wrestling. Steve had been doing it for a while. And then, so we had 2 years of wrestling together, and then we just kind of kept being friends, and 15, 20 years later, here we are.
Those were really big years. That the program started my freshman year, so it was only 2 years old when you came, and you and I were kind of put Goffstown, and we felt like on the map. We were out there trying to earn respect in the state for this young program, and that's a big reason why I think we're still here, and there's a lot of respect earned in those years. That was pretty fun times.
Yeah, well, I've always liked about wrestling, and a lot of combat sports and competitive sports is you don't just get respect, like you earn it. You earn it with your time on the mat, you earn it with your dedication, you earn it with yourself, and then your opponents. So there's a whole lot of things that can be earned, but none of it can be just given to you.
Yeah, it was in the hallways too. We were this new sport that we were kind of like the black sheep in the school, and we had to kind of earn respect in the school that way too. And some of it was taken and given in different ways. But with that said, those were those interesting times, fun times to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. And so I bring this up specifically to talk about one of the other businesses that I have going right now. Because we had this huge segment on the last one where I was talking about all the stuff I do kind of on the side. Now, this isn't my business, I should say, but I coach for a Gogi in Goffstown. So it's a little wrestling club. They predominantly work with children, but my class is for adults, and I'm learning catch wrestling so that we can teach catch wrestling there. So we'll probably be one of the only places in New England that I've found one or two that might teach it. I'm not sure. So we'll be one of the only places around that even teach it. So if you guys want to learn, wrestling even as an adult, because it's not just a kid's sport, you can learn it any time in your life. If you want to learn how to wrestle or learn catch wrestling, which is far older than the styles that are taught in high school, come on down. It's a lot like jiu-jitsu, so there's a lot to learn. So anyway, just plug in the other business.
Well, so let me just put in an observation here, right? Sports, especially in high school, and maybe a little bit in college, is an opportunity for people to bond and to learn. You guys started a new sport in the school. You had a lot of things to prove, and there are skills that the two of you have. There's a reason why the two of you are entrepreneurs. There's a reason why the two of you don't give up. There's a reason why the two of you go to the mat, shall I say, in the things that you choose to do. It's because of what you learned during those years wrestling. I mean, think about that for a minute, how that translated to your life. And so I would like to see the high school business program, some folks down here telling us what we're doing for the kids so that they are able to manage their life. What's the life skills that you're teaching kids? You learn life skills there.
Yeah, being an entrepreneur is a struggle, and I mean, if you define wrestling, like the first thing they say is to struggle.
Right.
So it's sticking when you mentioned that Marcus Aurelius, his famous book Meditations. he talks about life and how it's more like a wrestler than a dancer. You know, you have to endure the struggle, be in the right position. Sometimes it comes at you in a different way, and you have to rebound and gain position. And it's entirely exactly, you hit it on the head. It's just sometimes you have this best plan in the world, and then it completely goes sideways, and you have to kind of rebound. And it involves having your finances in place so you can endure when those things go wrong.
Right.
And you know, there's a reason why you see now with like the markets are really good these last couple of years for residential real estate. Everyone you know is a residential real estate agent because the markets are good, but when they go south, you probably see a lot go back to regular jobs
Right.
and such. So it's how do you build a business that can go through all those up and down markets and
Right,
such.
just to survive that, you know, that the word pivot, I like can't stand it because I've heard it so many times. I get exhausted from words, but it really is, how do you pivot in your life, right? And I call it agile. How do you stay agile, right? Because every business goes through change. And so we were talking earlier about the change in businesses because of we're AC after COVID, right? So, you know, during COVID, you know, people held back, you know, a lot of networking events went down, and now we're after COVID. And it seems to me, from my perspective, that much of New Hampshire business, it doesn't know what to do, right? I see, and guys, I'm going to compare it to California because I spent 15 years there and I started my business there. And I see the business folks I know in California rebounding big time. They're freaking doing awesome since COVID ended, and they're killing it because they have this pent up, they were planning, they were ready, right? And when the doors opened, they came out of the gate running. And I see the New Hampshire kind of laying back, which I'm very surprised. What are your thoughts on that?
You think it, just with no experience in California at all, you think the exact opposite. You know, it seems like there's more government regulation and such there. There's more, you know, things like gas prices more expensive. There's more mandates for things. You know, some towns, I think San Francisco, you have to wear a mask everywhere. So you'd think, just with no experience or an idea at all, that you think it'd be slower there. But it's interesting. You'd think it's more wide open maybe here.
Yeah.
That is really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, back to sports, it's like, you know, you
hold
as
me
soon as
back
it's
and I'm
in
going
place,
to come at you at another angle.
Yeah,
You're not going to hold me down.
Yeah, that hesitant type of strategy doesn't really get you too far in sports either. So that is pretty interesting. I'll personally, I opened and bought, so I bought a house during COVID and I opened another business during COVID. And actually that business that I started, it's called Enjoy Local. So we basically found goods makers, you know, maple syrup, honey, all that, and we found that they were kind of struggling. So we packaged them together as gift boxes and we started shipping them around the country. But we're actually finding that since COVID, we've become more interested in real estate. So we're potentially going to do another run through Christmas time this year. So it might just be like a during COVID business.
Right.
And we might kind of wrap it up from there.
DC.
Yeah, a DC business. There you go. So it's interesting how like the business cycles change. So we'll kind of see. And then we also have a BC business that Cooptopia that promoted all like attractions and salons and spas that it will be a little over 11 years now. And COVID really affected that one on many different levels. There was a risk of bringing people together. There was like ethical questions in our minds of like, is it good to drive a bunch of people into a business? And, you know, liability wise, like if something happened, like who's responsible and all that. So those things all kind of came to mind. And we've kind of just passively been letting that run. We haven't proactively marketed so much as just kind of maintain existing relationships. But again, after COVID, like you said, there's been this big run in real estate. So my partner on Cooptopia and Enjoy Local, we went in and bought a house in Vermont together, and then another friend that I own another 3-family with. So the three of us all kind of put our minds together. I was always talking with one about business ideas and the other about business ideas, and we decided that we could all do something together. So our bandwidth's been kind of going to that after COVID. So it's interesting how your interests kind of change and different opportunities present themselves. So I'm potentially going to have to make some tougher decisions in this year, potentially closing some businesses down, not because the market's not there, but just time and energy isn't really there any longer.
Right. Because, well, that's what serial entrepreneurs are supposed to do.
Why didn't you tell me this earlier? Why didn't you introduce me to earlier?
Well, that's the whole serial part of it. The first serial entrepreneur I truly met, again, when I was in California, you know, hi, I'm Gail, and, you know, And, you know, what do you do? And she's like, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm like, well, what's that mean? She goes, I start businesses, I get them up and running, they're doing really well, I sell them for a bunch of money, and then I go and do another business, right? And at the time, she was starting a spa in California. I mean, another fucking spa. Are you kidding me? It's on every... She made a killing, because of course she's a marketing genius, right? She made a killing. A couple of years later, she sold it, and then she was into some technology application that she thought was fantastic. And she was backing that and supporting that. So it's like, you know, that's what she does. That's a serial entrepreneur. They get things up and running. They have the quick start energy and the joy of the marketing, but they don't want the management, the day-to-day management. That's a snoozer, right? That's why I do what I do. You know, you give me a problem, you give me a process that's screwed up, I will be glad to help you figure out how to untangle that mess, but then I don't want to be managing it. You take care of it after that. You know, that's why I'm a consultant.
Yeah, it lets you kind of come in and out, focus on the problem, and then move on to the next.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I've always kind of taken a slightly different approach. So offline, before we were talking, that book, The E-Myth I was talking about, I almost take like a long-term investing strategy with businesses, where I like to build them, systemize them, and then let them kind of run, as opposed, so it's not taking as much energy any longer, and it's, you know, for your time and effort, it's all systemized, it's all automated, and you can kind of just manage it with a lot lesser effort at that point. But there's not that big payday at the end. And in my case, if we're not putting more effort into it, it does gradually, you know, decrease. You know, it's only going to respond with the effort you're putting into it. So it is interesting, the different approaches, but maybe I should have talked to your friend a little while ago, and that would have inspired us more to make different decisions.
How to flip things over.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so I know, talking to Brandon, Brandon's another individual who pops in every once in a while. He's in my comments constantly. So Brandon's very similar to that. He's a serial entrepreneur. He likes starting things, building them, kicking them off before they become too heavy, right? I think that's a much better way of going about things than what most serial entrepreneurs actually do. So, myself, for instance, I have a bunch of stuff. They haven't really gone anywhere. You know, you dabble in a little bit of it here and there, but they don't actually do anything. They just call themselves serial entrepreneurs. So that it almost feels like there needs to be another word for what that is, like a real serial entrepreneur, like professional or something that differentiates, like someone who has a bunch of stuff that, I'm not going to call them hobbies. I think that's pretty disrespectful for when you call entrepreneurs passions hobbies. Right. But it's still different than a systematic approach to starting a business, growing it, and then selling it. Because people don't realize the process involved there. Just selling a business is a pain. Right. Because you got to have all the information correct. It's got to be packaged and ready to go. Right. So there's a lot of work building a business with the intent to sell it. So I think, there's a lot that could go there that's very interesting. And I think if your goal is to get to that point where you're just going to sell a business, you need generally starting with that goal is very, very helpful, just so you can get everything ready in the beginning. Because it's not that you can't do it, but again, getting all of it ready at the end is definitely a lot harder than having it ready from the beginning.
So if I'm working with someone who is planning a business, because I've done this too, even before I was coaching, the first question I'm going to ask you is, what's your exit plan? Yeah. I'm not going to ask you, where do you see your business in 10 years? I'm going to say, what's your exit plan? Is your exit plan that this is going to be passed down to your children? That's your exit plan, right? Is your exit plan you're going to turn it over and sell it? Or is your exit plan that's going to become a corporation and grow? Because your strategy at the beginning on how you're going to market that thing is completely different for each case.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah. And I know I don't want to lose what I was about to say. Oh, so exit strategies. I said it's important. Like there are businesses, you don't hear about them a lot because it's a very niche business, but almost like a realtor, but for businesses. Mm-hmm. So you get these brokers who have deals, and they know the investors who are going to buy these businesses, or they help find them or whatever. So there's even real estate market, so second markets for businesses.
It's a big part of what so I'm a commercial real estate agent. I do nothing with houses, and we have to do like 4 families in North is considered commercial. But we have, a lot of them are business brokers as well, because a lot of times we'll be selling a building that has a restaurant, and you sell that with it. There's the goodwill, there's the training to onboard the new owners and such. So you're right, there's like this, it's like this secondary type thing. It's a different animal. You value it differently. It might be 3 times earnings, 10 times earnings, depending on the business, versus like the real estate, you're taking the net operating income and you divide it by the cap rate, and you might get a value for that property that way too. So there's 2 different valuations, but it's interesting when you can kind of meld them together and sell it that way. And some people, they're looking for that. They're looking just to buy an investment. Some people, they've always dreamed of owning a salon like that person you mentioned, or it could be, so many different ways to look at it. But it's how do you sell that? And I mean, you're selling a job.
Right.
If you're selling a salon or you're selling a restaurant, and it's really going to be someone else's dream that really enjoys that work, because there's struggle. It's not just buying cash flow, depending on the business. Some take 10 hours a week. Those are pretty attractive, maybe an e-commerce website, but a salon or a restaurant, you're raising your kids there.
That takes a lot. One of the first things that I was told when I became an entrepreneur was, and it sticks with me all the time. Felina Hansen, thank you, sweetheart, because this sticks in my mind, is, being an entrepreneur is not for faint of heart. Right? And so we're not talking about MLMs, which have, they have websites for you, they have training for you, they have motivational programs for you, they have everything you need to tap into to get your product going. I'm talking about being an entrepreneur. That's you're the one you're going to make it or break it. Right? It's not for faint of hearts, because it takes a lot of hours, takes a lot of effort. It takes doing something and failing, right? And being okay with that.
There's a phrase that I can't think, at the first part is indie, and I can't think of the second word that goes with it, but it describes people who earn their money either by sales or revenue or rent, not a paycheck. And it's like everything we're talking about. There's this phrase that's popular now. It's like a description of these people, but that's, having to be able to earn your living by either selling a product or a service, as opposed to punching in and having your 40-hour work week. It's a completely different mindset, of just how you approach everything. Personally, I graduated college in 2008. My first job out of college, my first big boy job, I was laid off.
Of course,
and it was
2008, perfect year.
Right, perfect year, right? So I got my job July 2008. I graduated May 2008, and I was laid off April 2009. And right then and there was first lesson: don't rely on one income. And the idea of owning a multifamily property where I could house hack and live in one unit and rent out the other. I grew up in a 2-family with my grandmother above me, so that was always in my mind. So I was planning to buy something in 2008, and then I was laid off, and so it got pushed out to probably 2012. But I think this way that we're talking about of bringing value to a marketplace, that's something that people want to exchange money for. There's an interesting, it's business building, but it's also more efficient for yourself, potentially be able to retire sooner as well if you build it the right way. But you have to have a lot of value in the marketplace over an extended period of time to keep that going too. So it's interesting.
Right, and the house hacking folks, the phrase that he's using is really, it's basically owning a multi-family and you don't have to pay rent. It really is.
Yeah, and you can do it a few different ways too. You could own a single family, you could rent out extra bedrooms, you could have a 2-family, rent out the other. I bought a 3-family with a partner. I lived on the 3rd floor, he lived on the 1st. We renovated the 1st floor, we had tenants in the 2nd. And now we've both moved out. We just rent that out. We just bought a property in Vermont where we're renovating it now. And we have campers paying us to camp out behind our house. And they're paying our mortgage right now where we're renovating the house. So there's all these different ways that you can kind of, you're converting excess space into revenue, which is beautiful.
The camper idea is brilliant.
I never heard about it. It's a site called Hip Camp. It's like Airbnb for campers, and the house that we got in Vermont's right next to all these mountain bike trails. So people come from all over the country, and once Canada's open, we'll probably get a lot more coming down from Canada as well, and they just want to be next to the trails.
Right.
So it's you have to have some value. For a house, it might be near the airport for traveling nurses or doctors or something, or it's a destination for Airbnb.
Well, you just never know. I have a friend who bought a house, and over the garage built an Airbnb, right? It's a beautiful little Airbnb. And I'm like, in Derry? Are you kidding me? He can't keep that. That thing is booked solid.
Right. You never know.
Booked solid. It's ridiculous. Yep.
We came across this site before we bought the place in Vermont called AirDNA, and you can basically just plug in any town, and it will tell you the exact what all the properties are doing on Airbnb. And it was staggering that the house up the small town in Vermont, we had a hypothesis that we could do well, but we saw the house 2 up from ours was getting $450 a night, and we're like, wow, okay, this actually could be something here. And we had so during COVID, we bought it in April last year. So right as COVID was like probably peak kind of everyone. It was I think a month after it was declared. We couldn't see the house until we had it under contract in Vermont. So
Right.
there was no vaccines really
Right.
at that time. So we put an offer in. We went back and forth, and once we had it under contract, we could go inspect it, and that was our official walkthrough before we closed on it. But it was the first time I've ever looked at a house, and it actually looked better in person than it did in the pictures. Usually the
nice.
pictures are all dolled up and pretty and all that, and you get there and the house looks smaller, the yard looks smaller, and all that. But yeah, it's first time ever. So that was a great surprise to have, which doesn't happen very often.
Right. So, so what we're talking about is, not necessarily entrepreneurs, but the everyday person who maybe has a 9-to-5 job, but has a crap load of land.
Yeah.
Right. How are you leveraging that?
You could put a tiny house out back and rent out your house.
So again, we'll head out to California. I have a friend who she has Lyme disease. She will die from Lyme disease. She's got it that bad. Her goal is to be financially free.
Mm.
So she's always rented out a room in her house, which paid her mortgage.
Yep.
Right? Now she has changed that. She's had to have construction done into an Airbnb because she can make more on Airbnb, 5 minutes from the beach, of course, than renting it out. So that's done. She's now putting a tiny house on them. And in California, they're encouraging that, or at least in San Diego, they're encouraging that because housing is so short.
Right. There's a borderline crisis of not enough supply.
Right?
Yeah. So
Right?
yeah,
And so her little plot, 1/4 of an acre,
right.
she's like, yeah, I'm not going to have to work much.
And she's gonna have that place leased out less too. She could probably make more in a week and a half or
Right.
2 weeks than she did with having long-term tenants
Right.
there all the time.
Right, and
So-
not the aggravation of a long-term
Right.
tenant.
You're not
Right.
bickering over who drank whose milk or
Right, or
anything
whatever,
like that.
or whatever, or coming home drunk or whatever.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So, guys, there's ways to, and in New Hampshire, there's, 4 seasons out of the year, people from Massachusetts who have the money are coming up here. Why aren't we capitalizing on it?
Yeah, it's absolutely. So I see that firsthand. So I work for a law office where I do the closings. I'm the guy that meets with them and do all the paperwork and all that. And I have a joke for people that move to New Hampshire that people that move here are smart, people who are from here are lucky. And I've had to say that so much this past year because every 10 closings I do, 9 are out of state coming in. They're selling a property in Massachusetts for an average of $700,000 or $800,000. They can have a net profit of $300,000 or $400,000. And they're buying houses cash in New Hampshire.
Right.
So they're outbidding the people that, for us, the average sales price might have been $300 something last year, and now it's, I think the median the last month I saw was $420 for New Hampshire, and that's just the median. Let
Right.
alone a lot of these other places.
Right.
So I think we're seeing the businesses start to come in. The bigger chains are starting to come in. I think that there's more wealth and more people coming into the state, but yeah, how do we capitalize on that? And also, there's a certain level of services they're expecting in greater Boston that isn't in New Hampshire yet. So I think that's a big opportunity to cater to that.
Right. Exactly. There's an opportunity there, and there's a threat, right? Because you have, I'm originally from Boston, and so, when I first moved to New Hampshire, there were things the city girl is not going to get here. Is that why I moved to New Hampshire? Hell yes. But
Right.
not all city girls are coming here. They're coming here with the city girl attitude.
Right.
I'm walking around going, oh my goodness, look at the apple grove. I can just go and get some apples, right? Look at the fact that I got a deer here.
And these girls are like, man, this place doesn't smell like rotten milk. How
Right.
dare they?
Right. I can't tell you, I still, will drive through and go, oh, look at this. It's the fall. Guys, it's the fall. Look at the leaves. And my daughter's like, Mom, you grew up in New England. I'm like, I don't care. Look at how beautiful those leaves are. They are vivid. They are gorgeous. And when it snows, when the sander comes, it's not so gorgeous. But when it snows, I hate the cold, but I love how beautiful and how quiet it is. I mean, there's so much here that people are coming for.
Right.
It's opportunity.
There was this project I worked on in college that was called the 55% Initiative, and the intention was to basically retain college graduates from New Hampshire schools to stay in New Hampshire after. And what came out of it's now called Stay Work Play.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what it was called. And but basically, in my senior in college, I went to Plymouth State, and there was UNH and Keene, and we all kind of worked on these projects of like, why would you want to stay here in New Hampshire? And I grew up in Manchester. I live in Goffstown now, and it was like, we were 45 minutes from the beach, less than an hour to Boston, less than an hour to the mountains, and it's like you had this everything at your fingertips, right? Like you're saying, and I feel like that marketing of all these years is paying off now to a degree. Chris Masiello, I work for the Masiello Group in Bedford, forecasted that in this year we would have 100,000 or 200,000 more people come into the state through all this. And I think that we've encouraged population growth and we've encouraged businesses coming to the state. But I don't know about you guys, but I have a lot of friends and family that are almost getting defensive of seeing a lot of out-of-state plates coming in here and kind of changing some of how
That's
the
where the
state's
threat
run.
is. That's where
Yeah.
the threat is.
Well,
Because,
you
because
hear-
Massachusetts people will not have a problem with sales tax.
Correct. So there are things that make New Hampshire that people that are from here don't want to change. Again, I usually say don't get political, but this is directly political. They want to come in, you implement sales taxes, you start implementing all this stuff. And like, if you left a place so badly because you didn't want to be there, don't pull all that stuff
Don't
here.
bring it with
There's
you.
a reason parts of New Hampshire are what they are. And that's one of them is we don't have a sales tax.
Right.
Income taxes, same thing. So you want to start throwing all these taxes up there, be like, oh, we can pay for all this stuff. No. If you want that, go back to places that have it, because that's what makes us different.
Right.
We don't want to be just another outskirt of Boston. That's not what I want New Hampshire to be. So on the flip side, there's plenty of people coming in, like say the Free State Project. I'm very friendly. I'm very friendly with the Free State Project. Shout out to everyone. I've had them on like podcasts before with Jeremy and all them, and sorry. Anyway, so a whole bunch of stories came back to my head real quick, but they do the opposite, where they're bringing in people who want more of the liberty-minded stuff to kind of counteract a lot of that. So you are seeing at the state level, you are seeing a lot of the freedom movement taking place. So reducing taxes, reducing all those things, because that is better for the growth of New Hampshire than just jacking everyone up with taxes.
It's interesting though. I've come across a few people that were free staters, and I heard the phrase.
Yeah.
I was somewhat familiar, but when you look at their website, it is a massive organized effort to recruit and move to New Hampshire because they feel that our politics is the closest in line with their vision.
Yeah.
And they're strategically trying to work their way into political positions to get in line with what the free state values are.
Well, so economics was my minor, almost my major, and I've seen it happen politically. If you reduce taxes, the increase financially is huge to the economy.
Yeah.
Huge, right? If you increase taxes, the inflationary impact to the economy is huge. I mean, we were talking earlier about the minimum wage, right?
Yep.
That's not going to make someone's life easier every time you raise it. It makes the price of everything higher. It makes it more difficult for the small business to employ anyone, and it is an inflationary move.
Yeah. So this is funny. So this is one of those topics that even on here, I've had before. I've had it on our Facebook group because I just ask people because I purposely know it's going to start a conversation.
Right.
And
dialogue is good.
Yeah. And is the minimum wage a good thing? Is raising a good thing? Because everyone's trying to push it up and push it up and push it up. And New Hampshire's a great example of a place that the minimum wage is like $7.20, $7.25, something like that, right? But the actual going wages are like $10, $15 an hour because you don't need the minimum wage. The market will take care of a lot of the other stuff if you take all that stuff out of the place. And then I will say one person gave me an answer that I was like, the gall, right? He's like, well, if it's already like 15, why don't we just raise the minimum wage anyway? I'm like, shut the hell up, dude. Like,
makes no
that's
sense.
not an argument, right?
That's not market driven.
So exactly. So, like, if you let the market do what it's supposed to do, it generally will increase those things. Like I said, try to find a job that's going to pay you $7.25 an hour. Like, if you're not working for your family, you're probably not going to find that, right? You're going to go to Dunkin' Donuts or McDonald's
Starbucks,
and you can get like $12.15 an hour, like right off the bat. So there are options. The more you let the market kind of do its things, and I'll give them, there's some regulations going to be watched over. Like we talked about Amazon for quite a stint earlier.
Right.
There are some companies that are far less like a free business than they are government. So yes, Amazon, it needs a little bit of oversight here and there, right?
And I will say there are things that Amazon does for their workers that other places can't because they have the money. So, it's not all bad mouth Amazon. It's just
Correct.
They're dominating the market too much.
Correct. So this is actually a really interesting conversation because we're about to talk about something I don't talk about too much because I don't have a chance to. And it's the old adage of time equals money, right? Now, I've been thinking about this for a while because I still have never refined it, but with you in the room, this would actually be an interesting opportunity to expand this. So everyone likes to say time equals money. And I think a lot of this stems from it's an old idea. But my idea is time, so it's like an equation. So time multiplied by the internet equals money, whatever. So because now we can do this, where we can sit here and talk for an hour, and we can then broadcast that to thousands of people across the state, right? Mm-hmm. So this becomes an issue of time amplified by the internet can be X. So I think you had said earlier, the not minimum wage, running a house on one income is difficult. Mm-hmm. And I think, so it's almost impossible to do it nowadays. And I think one of the big things that's coming up is we're finally moving from, the economy is realigning, right? So what I think you're going to see is you're no longer going to be able to have a one house income ever. So you're probably not going to be able to survive unless you make a lot of money, right? But you're going to have as a person with a job who has maybe a side gig, or maybe a couple other things on the side, right? Because you got to make that extra money. Right. So what you have is the internet. You can write an ebook, and then you can say, I'm going to take $20 a day and send that to hundreds of people, and then start generating income detached from your time. Right. And I think that's the important lesson moving into the future. So like low end monetarily people, like the people who are poor are going to be people who are working directly attached to their time. Right. Mm-hmm. And then I think middle class is going to be people who figure out you can have a job with like a side hustle and slightly detached from your time. Right. And people that are wealthy, they're going to be the upper class, are going to be people that can detach their time from their money.
Because it's not time for your money.
Yeah.
It's quality for your money.
Yeah. So I think that's
what do people want, and I can give it to you.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be the defining factor of how we break up economically in the future. Is again, so for those listening, if you want to take my opinion on this, grain of salt. If you learning how to detach your time from your money is probably the best way to move out of lower class into middle class, and then up.
Right.
I got a lot of thoughts going through my mind.
Passive income. It's called passive income.
I mean, this is I agree that it's further magnified or maybe exaggerated with the internet, but it has been going on for a long time. Mm-hmm. I mean, Warren Buffett said a long time ago that if you don't make money when you're asleep, you're going to work the rest of your life. Yeah. It's. Yep. I mean, passive income is very popular in things like real estate and businesses. If you create something once and it keeps working for you, but even things like a website, when, like you said, the internet, you can create a sales page that's like a silent salesperson. And instead of taking the phone call, you have the form you fill out, and now you've leveraged your time once, and it keeps paying you that way. You can pre-screen people that way. But yeah, in terms of money per hour and time equals money, I think those are all relevant thoughts that are getting further exposed right now, just because you can earn money so many different ways. I mean, we're talking about the mass exodus, the mass resignation they're calling it now,
Right.
where people are becoming more entrepreneurs. And a lot of I think this last year, people worked from home more. So different opportunities probably came up, and, they weren't exactly just punching in at your workplace. You probably are taking more phone calls, and different ideas come up when you're at your house than when you're inside your workplace, I would imagine. But I haven't worked a full-time job in about 6 years now, and that's why more opportunities keep coming up, because you can keep kind of stacking in.
You can be agile. You can shift.
Right, exactly.
Right? You're not like, well, I have to wait till 5 o'clock. Well, that's too bad. This opportunity is here now. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's jumping on those opportunities, right? If you see something, it's not so much but it's the ability to jump on it too. So something that you hit on too, Chris, I wanted to come back to was there's a big piece of it is the income piece, but it's like the budgeting and finance piece too. So like my wife's home with our 3 kids. We have a 1, 3, and 5-year-old. But the reason she's home with them is because of what we did 5 years ago when we both worked full time. We got really aggressive with paying off all the debt in our lives.
Yeah.
We don't have car payments. We didn't have a house payment. We didn't have, so we just got rid of all that. So now I don't have that big number I'm against every single month, which lets me kind of choose what we're working on. So I think there's that other piece to it too. They do have to come together, because it's your monthly cash flow. It's like you incorporated.
Right.
You have to look at it. You have to turn a profit every single month. And
Correct.
as a business owner, sometimes you don't. You got to have the savings and the emergency funds there to cover those.
So I think
Honestly, when COVID first hit, and then I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, it's
I'll
fine.
get right back to you. I met with, a lot of the folks that I was, networking with at the time. And one gentleman in particular, he was amazing. He and his dad, it's a family business. They own a car repair shop. They got more than one. Is that my guys are coming in. I'm not laying them off. I have 6 months worth of salary that I can pay them. And if we're just cleaning the place up and reorganizing, that's what we're going to be doing. And, he kept his place open and kept his guys paid because he was prepared.
He probably won market share that way too, because if the other shops are letting their guys go, they might not have had as much ability to get cars in, and they
When
probably
people
won more
came,
customers
yeah.
because of that. And now coming out of it, he's probably in a much better spot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So to get back to what I was going to say,
Yes.
start touching on what you brought up. I think something that's missing nowadays, especially in millennials, and I know everyone likes to kick on millennials and stuff. Like I'm a millennial. I'm like 34 almost, right? So I'm almost 34. I'm a millennial. There's like 2 other generations involved in this too. So anyway, so all the young people and some people, old people, but there's an issue of debt. So debt has always been a big thing, but I've been watching it like drastically spiral out of control for a lot of people. Most people carry a lot of debt. I forget what the household average is, like 20, 30,000 or something like that.
Yeah,
That's kind of the average. So people carry a lot of debt, and they just buy anything they want. Like, I want this, so they buy it. I know tons of people like this. I know far fewer people who are like you guys, who you paid off all the debt, you got everything handled, and now you can live the life you kind of want. These people live by whatever they want at that moment. They don't care how they're going to get it. Debt, credit cards, everything, right? And I think there is a huge problem, especially in the economy, and I think all these things, are kind of starting to compound on each other. That's why we're seeing all these issues nowadays, where there's no intent to any of this. Like, we go about our days, again, and just, I want this. Put it in your mouth, right? Or I want this, put it on my card. But they don't run their lives like they should with like a business. You have a budget. You have to run that budget. If you don't, you're going out of business. So I think that would save a lot of problems. One, again, budgeting. So going back to minimum wage and all these issues we're talking about is how we spend money. And then I like to talk about this all the time. you can raise the minimum wage as high as you want. If you're taxing 50-60% on it, it doesn't matter how you raise it, you're still not making a lot of money. Like, so reducing taxes.
That has a much better impact.
Correct. So personally, that's what I would say is if you want to increase better for society, remove the taxes attached to them. Because like these people are, just look at what's going on in the government right now. I'll go national politics real quick and say they're, $15 minimum wage straight across the board. Okay. And then what was it, like a $3.5 trillion budget plan is kind of what they're trying to pass right now. So I'm like, okay, so okay, we're gonna give everyone $15 an hour, and then we're gonna tax them probably at least $10 an hour or whatever it turns out to be, and you're in no better spot now. Everything costs more.
So macroeconomics.
Yeah.
You've just raised the minimum wage. Fewer people can hire folks. You're getting less taxes. Macroeconomics. If you decrease the taxes, the business person can afford to keep that other person hired. You increase your income. Go back to the Reagan years. The guy was brilliant with economics, and that's how, he was bringing that down by reducing taxes.
Yeah. And this is one of those areas that's pretty hotly debated.
Yep.
Depending on who you talk to, this will start a screaming match.
I know.
What do you mean
I know, that's what we want, though. Isn't that what we want? We want a discussion.
Pointed towards New Hampshire businesses, right?
Yes.
But,
something kind of comes to mind, and it does, just the capitalistic society, regardless of who's in office, when you look at economics, right, we're looking at the GDP, the gross domestic product, and what do they call us? We're consumers. Mm-hmm. It's all about more consuming.
Yep.
It's all predicated on consumption and everything you just talked about. So from the macro level, our system is always concerned with growth. We always want to consume more, sell more, buy more, eat more, right? So at the macro level, you have that. And then at the micro level, what we're talking about, everything you just said is about instant gratification versus delayed gratification, right? Throw in the card right now, I want it right now, versus saving for it for another day. And I think, again, it's being further exaggerated over this last year. Everything is way more expensive right now because we had interruptions in supply chains. So they can't get the chips in the cars, so those prices go up. Everyone scooped up all the used cars because they couldn't get the new cars, so now the used cars go up. The rental car companies, because not many people were renting their cars last year, they've sold their cars, so now they have less supply, so now your rental car went up. It proliferates into all these different ways, so I feel like right now is one of the biggest exercises over this last year, the COVID kind of era, I guess. What do we call it?
We're going to call it the COVID years.
The COVID years,
the
okay?
COVID years.
Is a great exercise, and if you can just hold your ground, maintain the car you have, maintain the house you have, as things start to balance next year right now we have crisis levels of supply for houses, we have shortages of cars, a lot of things have been interrupted, and it's causing the prices to all to go up. If you can hold out till maybe next year, maybe things will start to, I don't know, you can't forecast it, but I feel like we're already, like, there's been all this demand for houses right now, right? And there's a few things that happen with that. There's one part, people were leaving the cities, so that threw fuel on the fire with COVID. On really since 2008, we haven't had building levels since then. We basically 2008 exposed the overbuilding of houses. So I think in New Hampshire there's 3,000 or 4,000 permits per year that you can build for houses. Even if you were to do that, you can't keep up with the demand coming in. So no matter what, the supply was already an issue. And then when you had this exodus from the cities coming up, and again, micro, we're looking at New Hampshire, but we're seeing that in markets all over the country. So if you can just make do and stand pat where you're at, let the dust kind of settle where you're not overbidding for things and paying more. But I don't know, people value different things. If you really needed that car because you drive for a living, you can probably pay for a premium. You can justify it for a business use or commute, whatever it might be. But I feel like the exercise of delayed gratification right now, there's more money right now. All the stimulus money people received this last year, there's more houses being bought cash than we've probably seen in a long time. And people are buying cars, everything you can possibly think of. It's not, it's credit, like you said, like people are instantly doing that. But for a lot of people, for me, I have 3 children that are under 6. Mm-hmm. I don't need any extra money from the government, but I'm getting $960 a month right now because I get $320 per kid. I don't need it. I'm a capitalist, so it's nice to have extra money coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to other friends that are in a similar boat. As long as I think you make under $150,000 a year, you're open to getting that.
Yes, and you mentioned intention a little bit earlier, and part of what we're talking about are, I don't believe that people live intentionally anymore. And as a coach, if you listen to any of my podcasts or read any of my blogs, you're going to see that word intention come up, because I'm going to say, when you get up this morning, what's your intention for today? What is it that you want to achieve? How does that fit into your values? People don't understand what values are. They don't understand their own intrinsic values, not the values that business puts up, and not the values of you think society tells you, not the values of your church, your own personal intrinsic values. What is important to you? When you know that, and you intentionally get up in the morning and set your day based on intentionally meeting those values, you won't go wrong, because you're value driven and intention driven. And if your value is physical, my value is physical. Physical is part of my value statement. I want to be healthy. I want to die healthy, right? I don't want to die of diseases and pills and hit me with a truck. I'm not kidding, right? And so I eat properly. I work out. I take care of this vessel, and I take care of me, body, mind, and soul.
Yeah. So this is a really interesting point, and I like you brought it up. Intent.
Yeah,
So
you brought it up. I just highlighted.
You brought it up again. Thank you.
Okay.
Shush. I'm complimenting you. Take it.
She's a coach. She's coaching.
Yeah. So it's interesting because, like we were talking about with taxes, minimum wage, everyone wants more money, but I rarely hear them like, yeah, you're going to raise the minimum wage. We want to provide better service for that extra money. No, they're going to give you the same damn crappy service they had before, right? They just want more money for it. So what I find interesting about a lot of this is we're talking about debt, we're talking about instant gratification, we're talking about all these problems. I think there's another one, and like you were saying, how few people read a book after they get out of high school. I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
And it's very few. And then after college, it drops off significantly. Most people will never pick up a book once they leave school. So with that in mind.
That's amazing.
Correct. And I forget what the number is. It's very high. It's like 70% after like college. No one will pick up and read a book again. So people wake up every day and they go to work or they do whatever with no intent.
They're on autopilot.
Then they continue complaining about, why is my life not getting any better? I'm like, well, you're not doing anything. Like, you're not even on the treadmill running. If you're on the treadmill, you're still running in place, right? You need to run faster than the treadmill or get off of it, right? And that's what they do, and they do nothing. So I'm like, I forget what the old adage is, but it's something on the lines of, if you study for 30 minutes a day, after a year, you'll be pretty much a subject matter expert in that field. And it's just compounding effects over time, right? And that's only with like 30 minutes. Like me as a person, when I was an employee, if I worked somewhere, I had a goal. Like, I don't want to be in that position. I'm getting this position so I can do something. And then every day you go to work, you learn how to do that next thing, because that's how it is in the military. So unlike in the civilian world, in a lot of places where you get the job and they train you for it, in the military you have to be ready for that job, so when they stick you in it, you're operational.
You've already been trained. Yeah.
Yes.
That's always been my approach.
Yes. And people don't do this. No. So, and this is the issue. So you want more responsibility, you want more money, you want better pay. You haven't even started improving yourself to put yourself in that position. You want to be the CEO who makes hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. You do nothing to put yourself in that position. You just complain that they make so much money.
And it is all personal development.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's where a lot of these things are. So I always find it interesting that people complain about these things when, again, they get out of bed, you do nothing. You have 30 minutes out of your day to pick a book, to read, to study something. You don't have to be in college to study. I think that's ridiculous. You don't have to spend a ton of money. Go get a book. Go look on YouTube. Most things are on YouTube. You want to learn how to scuba dive? There's a whole bunch of classes on YouTube about it, right? There's everything you can imagine. So it's like, have some intent with your life.
Right.
You know, get up, have direction, move towards it. If you're like, wow, I really don't like that, switch, do something else, try a bunch of different things.
I love it, but I don't have time.
Yeah.
Let's shut off that TV program for an hour.
Yeah, like
Right.
like an hour, right? And most people binge their stuff now. So let's just talk about
I'll
if we're
binge
Yeah.
because I wait for it and I'll do whatever, and then I will take a weekend and binge.
So like I said,
Right.
and
Which is batching, right? Which is a good thing too. Like
Right,
cooking for
you're
the week.
batching.
Watch,
You're
right?
I'm time blocking, right? I am managing my
so
entertainment.
I'm going hard on this stuff, but there's nothing wrong with taking time off. That's fine.
Right.
Like I think this is actually an area where entrepreneurs annoy me. We're like, I work 24 hours a day. You do not.
No,
you
you
take time to yourself. You're fine, right? It's fine to relax. I think they romanticize too much about entrepreneurship nowadays. But I think if you want to improve your life and get further, and again, make more money, most things, I think as a society, there needs to be a really hard look at how we go about our days now. Because we don't, no one has intent. Like you said, they get up. I get it. I have four kids.
On autopilot.
Yeah, and correct. And that autopilot kind of has them sitting in one spot, sometimes getting worse, sometimes getting a little better, but they're never like advancing or anything.
So in the ebooks that I'm doing, I'm working on the 30-day action plan for the second ebook, and I actually have an exercise in there. When you get up in the morning, and I want you to list out the things that you do every morning in the order that you do them. I get up, I put on the coffee, I feed the cat, I go to the bathroom, I get my coffee, right? Make your list. Now, from that list, the coffee, the one thing that you do, or juice or whatever, don't do that and go for a walk for 5 minutes. Break up. So it's disrupting your routine. I am asking you to disrupt your routine. But first you need to know what that routine is, right? And then take that one thing that you do. You can do it later, but 5 minutes, 3 minutes, just go for a walk. Walk in the house if it's raining out, but go for a walk. And for me, I take the dog out. It used to be my daughter first thing in the morning. The dog comes downstairs. I'm like, I'm going to take her out, right? And I'm out for 5 minutes. She loves it because I'm taking her for a walk. Because I'm looking at the stars. I'm smelling the air at 4:30 in the morning. It's amazing. There's no one around. Pattern interruption. So if you guys are in a rut that you're talking about, right, Chris? If you're in a rut, interrupt your pattern, and your life will change. I guarantee it.
Absolutely. And I like you brought up that point about writing down your time. So this is another really good drill for people who they're like, no, every moment when my day is filled, write down everything you do.
Right? I've got that exercise.
And then I love that. That's why I brought it up after you mentioned it. Like, it's phenomenal to write down everything you do. And then when you look back on it, you're like, wow, I changed the television. I sat there for an hour. Like, just that alone. When people are like, I don't have time. Do you watch TV? Yeah, shut up. Like, but like, even if you do fill it with stuff, like, there's little like walking back and forth to the kitchen, watching back and forth up the stairs, do this, go to the bathroom. How many times you do all these things really start kicking on your time, like 5 minutes at a time, 5 minutes at a time. Here goes an hour, here goes half an hour. Minimize a couple of those things and put it towards personal development, and just watch how that changes over time. Like,
and
it's
you
crazy.
time block it.
Yeah.
You time block it. So me writing my ebooks, right? I don't have time for that. I time block it. Now, what that means is I'm going to work on my book for an hour, hour and a half every day. And every day, doesn't matter what time it is, I am going to devote that time to the book. I get done what I get done at the end of the week. But I move forward every week on those books. I move forward every week. So I'm not like, oh my God, I'm not getting this done, and then don't do anything anyway.
Yeah.
I'm taking a step. So if something is important enough to you, and again, back to intention and knowing your values, how important is it to you? If it's that important, then you can time block it and say, from this time to this time, I'm going to work on this. If you can't do it every day, then do it on once a week. Commit, and that is sacred. If it's important to you, then it's sacred to you.
Yeah.
You guys got a lot of ideas going through my mind.
I'm telling you.
This is good.
I'm good at what I do.
So, I mean, everything's kind of coming back to, the value and what it really comes down to with all this is that time is more valuable than money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Time is the most important thing in scheduling your time. You can't get time back. You can always get another certification. You always make more money, get another job. But, for me, like I said, I have little kids.
Right.
I'm never going to get this time
Yeah.
back with my kids. So everything I do is through the lens of how can I have the most time with my kids right now. I did an exercise recently, last week, where I basically took every profession. I do 6 different things. I wrote out every single part of time that goes with those jobs. So ironing my shirt, getting ready for the day, the commute, the drive, all that. And what I found was I actually only work 20 hours a week. I spend 30 hours a week doing all the other stuff, driving around, doing the prep, all that stuff. 20 hours a week is actually what I work. I spend 56 hours a month driving.
Yeah.
So if I could remove 56 hours and do something that was just from home, that'd probably be a big shift in my life.
You're talking
But-
about like almost an entire another job.
It's just me driving.
It is.
Yeah.
Exactly. And honestly, that's the thing, the lesson from COVID. I mean, when COVID hit, I sat there and I'm like, all right, so how many hours am I not spending on the road? What am I going to do with that time? Right? That's when I started, planning my road trip. That's when I started planning the ebooks. That's when I started podcasting.
Yeah.
Right?
Right?
It was an opportunity. I listened to Zig Ziglar. They had a podcast for years. I think Kevin Miller's his name, and he has Zig's son Tom on there sometimes. And something that he said that kind of stuck with me is like, what's the fastest way you can make a change in your life? And everything you guys were just talking about of, looking at all the things you do, but really looking at the habits you have.
Right.
What do you continuously do? And the quick switch that he said was identifying the bad habits and just replacing them with a good habit.
Right.
Like that's like the biggest quick, right? And for me, I actually just recalibrated this. I'm a big Patriots fan. My vice, I guess you could say, sometimes makes things
That's
a
your
little
R&R.
contentious.
It's not a vice.
Well, some of my conversations with my wife, I don't react the best, so I'll leave it open ended. It is a vice, but with that said, I'm in the car a lot, right? So big Patriots fan. I tend to sometimes listen to sports radio more than I probably should, but I started getting back to. So I did this thing. I use Google Podcasts. And the issue with podcasts for me is like you pop it up and there's just whatever's recent up there, right?
Right.
So what I did last weekend is I went through and I filtered, I added to like my queue of all the
Right.
podcasts I was interested in listening to. And last week, lo and behold, I just opened my queue and now I could listen to podcasts for 10 hours last week of things I was actually interested in instead of just the sports radio because it was
Right.
easier
Yeah.
just to hit that button on. So
Right.
that was a
Absolutely.
big shift for me.
It was always one of my things. Grant Cardone talks about, instead of just driving to work and listening to music and rotting your brain,
It's
put
just
on
simple.
something educational or put on something where you're learning and use that drive time as like your library time. Like, because you can learn a lot, taking things in. I listen to audiobooks
Right.
or politics, one of the two. And so when I'm listening to those things, you can take that drive time and just add a little bit to it. Just make sure you're doing it safely,
Right.
and kind of go
Well, I
from
used to be a big Michael Beckwith fan, and I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he was one of the guys that is on the original Secret,
Yeah.
right? He's in the new movie Think and Grow Rich. I'm not surprised. So are a lot of the guys from the Secret. And he had a couple of CDs that I used to listen to when I was driving up to LA. It's like 2 hours and 10 minutes when there's no traffic. 6 hours when there is. What am I going to, coming home one time. What I did was I popped in his stuff and it was all motivation, all about mind, all about mindset, right? It was the best time ever. Best time ever. But he would say, we're going to meditate now, but if you're driving, just put this in the back of your mind and please focus on your driving.
So cool. Yeah. So we're getting to that point where we're just about an hour.
Yeah.
So just
Wrap
because
her
we've
up.
been sitting here for a little bit. I know you have an appointment coming up pretty soon,
I do.
Gail. So we'll wrap up and we'll go from there. So give us where to find you, Gail. And
Oh,
go from there.
so my website is gailcraft.com, GAILKRAFT.com, or you can send me an email at Gail, GAIL, at gailcraft, GAILKRAFT.com.
Oh man, where to find me? So my
On the road.
Yeah, I'm everywhere. My personal email, again, my name's Steve Spain, so stevespain2@gmail.com. I write content for the MorganFranklinFellowship.com. It's a nonprofit for teaching people about personal finance. So you'll see all my content there, and you probably see me here more often as well. So just look for these podcasts.
Awesome.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Awesome. And I'm Chris Pastrana. You can find me on nhbusinessshow.com, as well as Facebook, Instagram, some of the more obscure websites as well. So reach out, you'll find me, and I'm pretty active. So we'll go from there. And everyone, thank you for watching. I know this was our second one today, as I was saying. Kind of spontaneous, and I'm glad we did it. That was a really good hour. That went by really fast. And we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
Thank you.